Welcome everyone again. The International Court of Justice has delivered an interim ruling in South Africa's genocide case against Israel. The UN's top court considered 9 emergency measures proposed by South Africa, leaving out its allegations of genocide. Israel has strongly dismissed and denied the allegations, calling it baseless, while the ICJ's President Joan Donoghue did not dismiss the entire case brought by South Africa. She noted that there was sufficient evidence of a dispute between Israel and South Africa. The court voted 15-2 on the order that Israel must take all measures in its power to stop anything in relation to genocide in Gaza, but failed to call for an immediate ceasefire.
Please be seated. In the court's view, at least some of the acts and omissions alleged by South Africa to have been committed by Israel in Gaza appear to be capable of falling within the provisions of the Convention. In light of the following, the court concludes that, prima facie, it has jurisdiction pursuant to Article 9 of the Convention to entertain the case. Given this conclusion, the court considers that it cannot accede to Israel's request that the case be removed from the general list. I shall now read out the operative part of the order. For these reasons, the court indicates the following provisional measures. 1. By 15 votes to 2, the State of Israel shall, in accordance with its obligations under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in relation to the Palestinians in Gaza, take all measures within its power to prevent the commission of all acts within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention, in particular, A, killing members of the group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group.
Earlier, hundreds of people staged a sit-in protest at The Hague Central Station in the Netherlands, calling for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Protesters held banners as well as chanted pro-Palestine slogans. They also accused the Dutch government of being complicit in crimes committed by Israel by sending military components to the front line.
Many doctors have been killed already, hospitals have been bombed. These bombings are partly done by planes for which the Netherlands also gives components like parts of these planes. The Netherlands is for now keep sending them. There has been a court case around it that's still ongoing to stop this. But in that sense, the Netherlands is also complicit in that, and it has to stop. Because there's no way that the ICJ could judge in favor of the occupation. There's so much proof for a genocide and every day counts. Thus, if there is any justice left, the ICJ will rule in favor of Palestine.
2 weeks ago with ICC, and they are waiting for the evidence and investigation. When they invaded in 2003, when US invaded Iraq, they didn't ask for a real evidence. They have a thought that they have weapons. Sorry, they do have a weapon there, and they invaded Iraq. And when it's coming to Ukraine and to European countries, we see a double standard. But when it's coming to Palestine, we see the double standard. So
we are also here to join the people that have been doing this all the time, because we feel as doctors that we have to do something right now because it's going too far. We have seen kids being amputated without anesthesia. We see women being done like having a C-section without anesthesia. These are things that no doctor should ever accept, and that's why we think that all doctors around the world have to call on the fact that this is not humane, that we should stop it. And this is actually something that has been protected by the Geneva Convention, and the fact that that has not been honored today, that's the reason why we are here today.
The VOA's Ricky Rosen joins us now from Tel Aviv in Israel. Hi, Ricky. Please bring us up to speed on the ICJ's ruling in The Hague, especially the issues that were not treated, such as genocide and the call for a ceasefire, which were major issues brought by South Africa.
Well, the ICJ ruling was a mixed bag. It turned down Israel's request to dismiss the genocide charges entirely, but did not accept the South African demand for immediate ceasefire of Israel's war in Gaza. Instead, the order that it issued was weaker than that. It was a provisional order until they make a final ruling, which probably won't come for 2-3 years on the genocide charge. They issued an order that Israel tried to prevent mass civilian casualties, which could be considered genocidal, and allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza to prevent a humanitarian crisis of hunger and disease. And it also significantly ordered that Israel prevent incitement against genocide, like some of the comments that have come out of ministers and government officials.
And Ricky, let's go back in time and refer to, we'll go back in time to the context, which is the October 7th attack, where Hamas killed more than 1,200 people. Israel, in response, began its military operation, causing, mass civilian casualties. Many wonder if South Africa is perhaps looking at this from one side of the fence.
Well, South Africa is definitely representing the interests of the Palestinians, and specifically Hamas, because they are not states which can be represented in the International Court of Justice, and they did not sign the Genocide Convention, as did South Africa and Israel. South Africa has taken anti-Israel positions for many years, probably going back to the time when Israel supported the white apartheid government in South Africa. And they've also formed strong ties, both financial and political, with Iran, who are supporting Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and hosted such authoritarian regimes like Putin's Russia and the Sudanese. So they are definitely seen as political opponents of Israel.
And some have analyzed, this situation, saying the Hamas attack on October 7 was a result of pent-up frustrations from a people that felt oppressed for years. And so the pushback was bound to happen at some point.
That could be true, but most analysts in Israel would answer that Hamas has never supported a two-state solution or any attempts being made to arrive at a political peace process politically, and they have been steadfast in what is stated in their charter, which is that they don't accept the existence of Israel, so that this October 7th attack was not actually an attempt at national liberation, but an attempt to create a challenge to Israel's existence.
And what does, what do Israeli officials make of the ruling? How are they reacting? Do they agree with the verdict?
I think inside, a lot of Israeli officials are relieved that the International Court of Justice did not call for a complete ceasefire, which they are not ready to accede to. Prime Minister Netanyahu, immediately after the verdict came out, blasted it, saying that that the Court of Justice has no right to accuse Israel of genocide, that it's a moral outrage, and that Israel will continue to pursue the war against Hamas until Hamas is eliminated, and that it's a war of self-defense and it cannot be stopped.
Right, Ricky, thank you for your time today.
you.
In the meantime, dozens of pro-Palestine activists have demonstrated outside Nairobi's German embassy against German financial support to Israel and to demand a ceasefire in Gaza amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. It, however, turned chaotic as police fired tear gas to disperse a crowd of protesters and others arrested and placed into police vans. Some protesters carried banners reading, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free."
We're here to protest. We were going to go outside the German embassy to protest the German financial and military support to the apartheid Israeli state, which is currently conducting a genocide against the Palestinian people, and it has been for the past 75 years. That is why we're out here.
I'm here to support the Palestinian cause, to remind everyone that the ongoing current genocide in Palestine is being funded and supported by the German government as well as the American government and many other governments across the world, and this needs to stop now. Ceasefire now.
We need your pictures, guys, please.
Let's get to the heart of the conflict, where residents in Gaza are seeking safety along the borders with Egypt amid the ongoing crisis between the Israeli Defense Forces and Hamas in Khan Yunis. Thousands of tents lined the border area, where locals grappling with difficult conditions gathered near their modest shelters carrying bottles of water. The situation has led to a significant number of people erecting tents in the area, faced with limited options for refuge. Compounding their challenges is the scarcity of aid. Well, a day before the 79th commemoration of the Holocaust in Israel, a non-governmental organization has called for countries not to distort history of the horrific event. Executive Director at I Stand With Israel International, Rex Ajenifuja, says nations must learn about Israel's past to understand some of its present actions. He also describes the war with Hamas as a regular war, but with a different dimension. Israeli filmmaker in Nigeria, Ronya Man, who was a special guest at the event in Lagos, says people need to understand the distinction between Holocaust and genocide, a word recently used to describe the Israeli war in Gaza.
So genocide is a word that's been used quite a lot recently. It is meant the killing, the mass killing of a certain race with the intent of exterminating that race, that ethnic group. Whereas Holocaust is a Greek word for burnt people, or a mass burning of people. Which is why specifically the genocide of the Jews in 1935 to 1945, World War II, is called the Holocaust, because they used burning to exterminate the Jews, to commit genocide on the Jews.
There's no way you can relate with Israel without relating with our Israel, without relating with our history. And the history of Israel is not complete without the history of Holocaust. Unfortunately, in this part of the world, we seem to forget about the past, or we seem to play as if there was no past. So Israel that you're seeing today, you are seeing them today, or the way they are behaving today, was as a result of what they have experienced in the past. Fortunately, the war against Hamas is just the regular war, but taking a new dimension. So it relates today because if you look at what is happening in Gaza today, nobody will ever believe, even Israeli Defense Force, their intelligence were beaten. They never thought that such a thing could happen to them in this dispensation, in this 21st century, where knowledge, technology is so advanced.
And staying with the Holocaust Remembrance Day, European Parliament President Roberta Metsola hosted a plenary session in Strasbourg, France. Mr. Metsola hailed lawmakers for their efforts in standing up against anti-Semitism, but cautioned that the bloc needs to do more to combat discrimination. A Holocaust survivor who left Israel after the October 7th Hamas attack called for solidarity to see the safe return of hostages.
As one survivor put it, the truly horrific thing was the absence of horror of so many. The comfort of indifference meant too many closed their eyes and turned away. I am proud that the European Parliament is not a place of indifference. I am proud that this House speaks up against Holocaust deniers, against conspiracy myths, against disinformation, and against violence that deliberately targets and singles out members of our communities. Because despite decades of effort, we have not yet done enough to combat discrimination.
As I stand here before you, I have left my country in the wake of violence, murder, rape, and terror. After more than 100 days, there's still 136 kidnapped hostages, dead or alive, in the hands of the terrorists. For your solidarity and your support to see those hostages reunited with their families. The entire country yearns to have them back alive. Help bring them back alive.